Good morning, garden friends. Today I'm just going to do a brief little video on how I plant tomatoes. And this is to correspond with a blog post I have. I like to link a video in my blog post so people can see step by step with things I do. So I know for many of you this will be rote, old news, but I do have a lot of beginner gardeners that follow my blog and or my YouTube channel. So this video, I'm going to show you how I plant a tomato. This one will be black cherry, but and it's a cherry tomato, but it does get quite tall. And the reason I wanted to show this, because you think you plop it in a hole, you're good to go, right? But no, that's not always the case. So I will show you why I don't fuss too much about my tomatoes sometimes getting leggy when I start them early. And I have another video you can refer back to how I start my tomatoes early. And I will link it in the description box below. But like I said, as I share this planting technique, which many people use, it will demonstrate why I'm not overly worried about my tomatoes becoming tall and leggy. So let's get planting. First of all, here we are at my little DIY greenhouse. I had my husband pop up for me so I can get an earlier start on my tomatoes because we have a very short growing season. Even though I'm in garden zone 8, we live in the mountains, and that is what determines our garden season and not our zone. Anyway, so I've got some of my tomatoes planted in here, and I wanted to share that with you briefly before we get to planting our tomatoes out. I'm going to plant some over in the side garden. I like to interplant things in with my flowers, and because I have such small growing space around my lot property, and that, you know, integrating my vegetables into my garden, flower garden, just gives me some extra veggies. So let me point you down really quick. You see how this is damp? You see this right here? This is damp. I seeded some white clover, and it's going to make like a little grass pathway, but the clover also fixes nitrogen into the soil, and that's a beneficial thing. So I started here. It's kind of a bad time to start it because I have to go walk around it all the time. So I'm going to pick up my camera, I'm going to walk into the greenhouse and show you my tomatoes in there. So being my little greenhouse is only 6 by 8, it's kind of cramped in here to video, but I did want to share with you my tomatoes. Now this is my black pineapple, or ananas noir. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And that was probably about twice as tall as what you see there. It has been in for a week, and so it has grown a little bit. It's really beefing up. But the way I'm going to show you how I plant tomatoes is how I planted that one. The next one is beefsteak. Just classic beefsteak. I just wrote an article on my blog all about growing beefsteak tomatoes. I'll put a link to that in the description box below as well. And this one down here is Early Girl. You can see I have the little tub, pot it was planted in. And that also was probably about twice as tall as you see there. That one got planted just a few days ago. Anyways, so those are the tomatoes I have in here so far. And now I am going to plant some outside of this. Now, you can see right here what I did. This is just a concrete remesh panel, and we hung it up on the wall just with some screws. That's it. And as my tomatoes get taller, I will weave it in between the squares. Now, as summer comes and it gets hotter, this plastic will be rolled up. So this will be open to the outside, and it will no longer be a greenhouse. It'll be a structure with holding up the panel for the support. So that's where we're at in the greenhouse so far. So this is my side garden next to the road that goes beside my house. I live on a corner. If you haven't been here much to see my garden videos, to kind of get your bearings. of where we are on our property. Anyways, over here, this spot gets morning sun, then a couple hours afternoon shade, and then some more sun. So this is a good spot to plant this. And I probably will use a cage or a lattice, not too different than this. Now what this does is it prevents the deer from eating what's behind it. Now I have taller ones. I'm trying to move this. I'll move around so I'm not standing in the way. Now this spot is terrible with gophers. So far I have not had them eat my tomatoes. I'm pulling up, this is just some feverfew that volunteers, I get it really thick. But here is the irrigation hose. So this is a good spot for it. I probably should go see. Oh, I'm sure you can see this. Here's another one I need to move. Just some debris to get it out of the way. Of this tomato. They've been so busy over here, they've buried some of my irises really deep. That's not supposed to be that deep. Anyways, as I said, the feverfew will come back in droves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig more of a trench than a hole. Soil's good and moist. Now this one, this is a black cherry tomato. Look how tall it is. This is a poo pot. It's kind of dried out now, so it's looking a little weepy, dehydrated. But the one thing is the roots are already starting to come through, so I have no issue about this maybe going ahead and growing through it. I'm not going to remove it from the pot, but I am laying it down sideways, horizontally. And then I just bury it. Now, what I want above the soil, I don't even remove the leaves. That's probably a bad thing, but so far it has not created any issues for me. Now this, I think, and it looks like it's good and dead, was an alstroemeria. So, I don't know, maybe I'll pot that up and see if it'll come back. It's supposed to survive in my area. I'm not sure what that is over there. But, so here we go. We got this all planted up. Now you notice now it's barely, maybe a third, if a half, maybe. But I think it's closer to a third of the height it was before. Now the benefit of that is all of the stem that is underneath the ground will grow roots. So you will get a stronger, sturdier plant. And when it comes time, I'll have a cage or some kind of lattice or some kind of support for this. Now you may think, oh, that's kind of ugly in your flower garden, but there's so many things growing and so many things that are just gorgeous that you won't even notice the cage. It will rather blend in. And I am one that I hedge my bets, so to speak. I will plant another one of these in another area, and that way I'll be sure to get plenty of black cherry tomatoes. So, hey, what are you doing here, Rachel? This is Rachel, not Reuben. Huh? Okay, let's see. Let's get this feverfew. Put it over here in my pile to go to the compost heap. As I said, it reseeds readily, and I've got tons of it coming up. Now, I will mulch this so that it keeps steady moisture. That prevents the blossom end rot. Let me see, I got somebody coming up. Blossom end rot, and I have a whole blog post on preventing blossom end rot if you're interested in learning more about it. And needless to say, it is more complicated than just a lack of calcium in the soil. So those wives' tales of eggshells, tums, etc. in the soil to prevent it is just that. It's not going to help you prevent it. So go ahead and read that. I'll link it in the blog, in the description box. So that is my handy dandy little trick for planting leggy tomato plants, or even any tomato plants that have gotten taller just because you want that root mass. Now, alrighty, so there you have it, planting up your tomato plants. I'll see you in the next video.